I know that you are essentially working at a corporate and possibly are an executive, and you've uh, worked and seen different startups as well uh, over the past couple of years. And your job, essentially, if you think about it, is essentially to make decisions, right? That's essentially what you do throughout your day. I mean, your entire job is to make decisions and hope that those decisions are right. And eventually, over decade long time or however long it has been for you, you have essentially figured out or trained your mind or learned the skill of decision making. And decisions are so important for you that your single decision can actually affect hundreds or thousands of people that are working under you. And yet, and yet, even though we realize that decisions are the atomic units of progress in our life, we don't teach that to our children at a young age. Imagine you're going through life when you know that you need to walk, but you don't teach your children to walk, even though you know that it's going to happen, sooner or later it's going to happen and it is required. And yet we don't teach that in anywhere in our education system. And it's stupid. It's stupid that we're allowing that to happen. And so that's what I want to talk to you about today, that how can you teach your your teenager to make decisions better using physics, because physics is a really, really, really cool tool, and all the concepts and foundational models and ideas and the mental models that you find in uh, physics are really, really, really important tools that allow you to make better decisions in your day to day. And if we start that at a formative years of these formative years of 13 plus of age, it becomes, an almost an automatic response to different situations, to different conditions, to different places and people that you need a decision on. And that decision making is what I'm trying to teach throughout my entire portfolio of work that I do, and essentially, of course, through physics over here. Now, let me just quickly share the screen, and we'll dive right in. So, as I said, essentially, your job essentially boils down to making decisions on a day-to-day basis, and it can really alter the direction of the ship that you're steering, right? And very few people actually realize. I mean, and you are essentially at the top of the career ladder for in society, in most of, I mean, in the context of society and what we perceive to be success, and that's great. That's great. But unfortunately, we don't really understand how important it is to make those decisions, and those decisions are the reasons why you are where you are. And that's why I keep saying that decisions are the atomic units of progress in life, because every decision, every right decision, or every decision that has been made right to some degree is the reason why you're progressing in life, and is the reason why you're able to move forward in life. So we can safely say that the quality of your decisions will determine the trajectory of your child's life, or the life that your child will have, right? And that's why I'm pushing so much that decision making is a real skill that we need to teach at a young age, and not wait for it to happen, right? I mean, decision making is considered automatic. You can imagine how stupid that line sounds. And when I say automatic, it simply means that as this child grows old, or as the as we kind of uh, learn different things, or learn different subjects, or give different exams, or go through life and have those experiences, we think that it will result in good decisions later on. We think that it will result in uh, in progress in your life, but that is not true. So many smart people make bad decisions all the time. So many smart people get I mean, they make bad decisions, maybe in their relationships, or with their finances, or with their uh, real estate and whatnot. And other people are able to manipulate them easily, because they are not able to have that control in on their emotion. And second, they don't really have a rational way of thinking through that particular situation and deciding what to do next, right? And so it is stupid if we think that it's going to come automatic. Like, I mean, you cannot expect it. It's such a big part of the life that you cannot expect it to be automatic. You really have to work and put an effort towards it. And that's why decision making is such an important aspect. And yet we are not able to correct that or even work towards it. No one even talks about it. No one even talks about it. I mean, forget teaching. No one even talks about actually making it a reality or making it important. Now, how does physics help? Physics essentially is the study of how things work, right? For the science, if you think about science, science is essentially the study of nature, and you essentially study nature, experiment with it, observe it, and you boil it down into a particular set of principles or a particular set of theory that you have created, and that essentially then you keep trying to prove it right as much as possible, wherever possible. And physics is just a part of science, and so physics is the way the real world works. And so we are trying to figure out how the real world works and then use that knowledge, use those principles, use those concepts to apply to our life across the board, right? I mean, those concepts are not just true for physics, and they're not just there for, making those numericals and solving those problems, but rather the same concepts of physics, like compounding, like leverage, like inertia, like momentum, all of those are applicable in your own life, in your own business, in your own day-to-day being. And we just don't know how to apply it, or we don't know that these are already applicable in our lives yet. So physics is there. And another important thing that physics allows you to see is the world in component parts that fit in together beautifully, right? So physics, when you study physics in a book, it essentially breaks it up in chapters, and those chapters essentially are the different component parts that you see the world through, and slowly, all of them integrate together into the world that we see together. And that's what physics helps you to do, that you are essentially able to break down a particular problem into its component parts and then integrate it back together to create a decision or to think through a decision much better in day-to-day life. Now, there are so many concepts, mental models, frameworks that have been developed in physics that can be and are applicable directly in life, career, entrepreneurship, and progress. Everywhere it's applicable, and yet we don't apply it. So that's what I want to share with you. And I'm moving very quickly on this so that it becomes very exciting for you to understand, and it becomes very, energetic for me to also share, because these are things that I live for. These are the things that I really, really, really enjoy talking about as well as teaching about. So the first of the tools, these are the tools. Of course, these are very few tools that I'm mentioning over here. There are so many more that I'll probably have to take multiple lectures just around this, but I feel that these are the tools are great to get your child started on making better decisions in their day-to-day life, and having conversations about those decisions in a better form, right? It's not that conversation should not become a head-butting position, and that conversation should remain a conversation. And for that to remain a conversation, you have to come at it from a different angle. You cannot just be talking about your own opinions all the time, like the child having their opinion and you as a parent having your opinion. And if those opinions don't match, then you're only going to be fighting with each other. Rather, if you think from a different angle, which are these tools, if you think, hey, like, let's try to think from this particular first principles thinking, or let's do a thought experiment, or let's see if quantization is applied over here. If you start looking at these tools at different angle, now you're doing this together. Now you're doing the thinking together. Now it actually becomes a bonding exercise, because you're using your conversation to think through the decision as much as possible. And so that's why these tools are so powerful. So let me go through the first principles thinking idea. The first principles thinking is essentially all of the assumptions that you tend to have about a particular situation. You essentially have to leave all of them away and boil down completely to the core truth, right? Boil completely down to the core truths and then build up from there. Now, Elon Musk did this beautifully with SpaceX. And it's one of the most profound stories that I read almost like a decade back, and it was really cool. I mean, maybe not decade, but like, yeah, 7, 8 years back. But Elon Musk, when he started SpaceX, as you might already know, but he started SpaceX and he did a lot of research, talked to a lot of experts, talked to, the rocket companies at that time, and he went on to, I mean, he was planning to buy a new rocket. or essentially he was trying to see what it would cost to buy a new rocket, and the quoted price for him was $100 million. And that $100 million was a huge, huge, huge amount that he figured out that that amount is so inflated that it's stupid. It's stupid that it's so inflated, because he, in his research, he recognized that all of the core components that are there in a rocket can be found in, say, 1/100th of the amount, or rather 1/10th of the amount. So say $10 million, you'll probably get all of the material, all the metal, all of the wires, all of the whatever else is required, the carbon fiber and stuff. All of that is available in just $10 million out of the 100 million that they were asking. So why that $90 million gap? That $90 million is essentially going into their pockets. And that was surprising to him, that, like, it should cost like, maybe 25% of what they were pricing, and yet they're charging so much. So that was the first revelation for him, that it is costly. It is unnecessarily costly because the inflated margins are huge, because there are so few buyers. There are only government bodies that are buying these rockets, and they're only buying these rockets one off, like, maybe once in 5 years they are buying those rockets. So there's no point in making so many of these. And so if you have to only sell 1, 2, 3 rockets in maybe a year or 3 years, then you have to mark it up so much so that you can pay these scientists, you can pay these engineers to actually work on a rocket and create a new model, right? You understand where I'm going with this. So Elon realized that, okay, this is a big problem and I can cut down the cost dramatically by doing this. And the second thing he noticed is that in the industry, in the space industry at that time, what was happening is essentially the all of the work, or rather all of the rockets were essentially shot up into the space, and they were just left there. Nothing came back. And he realized that, shit, like, that's so stupid, because almost every other vehicle, I mean, not almost every other vehicle that we use, even from a bicycle to a car, we use that vehicle, we go and we come back, and we go and we come back, and we keep using that vehicle again, again, again. But over here, this particular vehicle, which is essentially the rocket, we are not using it, multiple times. We are only using it once, and that is sheer waste of money and energy and resources. So, and that's what his core thesis was, that, okay, I need to reduce the cost down by getting the materials by myself and building a team that actually builds the rockets out. And then second, I need to make the rockets so much so that they can go up and then come back down, or at least part of that body can come back down and can be reused again. And that's what he's done it. And that's what makes SpaceX such a beautiful company that it is. Now, why am I saying that? Because first principles thinking allowed him to do it. First principles thinking allowed him to think through like this. In such a uncertain industry, he was able to have a very clear thought by using physics, this particular physics concept as the base. Right now, how can I apply it? How can you apply it to your child's future or decision making? So one example that I keep getting is, which college should I go to? Which branch should I take? Now, usually when we think about the decision of this, is usually around the, as I said, like, it could be around the brand name of the college. It could be around the price of the college. It could be around the locality, as in where is it located? Is it in US? Is it in Japan? Is it in Germany, and so on? And what kind of facilities are there? What kind of placements are there, and so on. Now, all of these are, I mean, these are the common ways that people decide on, right? But I would say that these are not the best way to actually think about a college, because at the end of the day, when you think about from the core truth as to what a college really is an experiential education place. That means the people that you study with are really important. Like, the first important thing is, who are the kind of people that are going to be your classmates, right? Or your child's classmates. That is the fundamental question, because at the end of the day, all the information, all the knowledge is available for free on YouTube. Why do you really need a college degree? The college degree should give you an additional edge, and that edge is essentially being around people who have higher standards than your own child, or who would push your child to become better, or who are so intelligent in their own field that your child will also become intelligent just because they have the right company and the right people, right? So that should be the first thing that you decide on, right? I mean, that will decide which location they should be going to. That would decide which branch they should be taking in, maybe, right? So that should be like the first criteria for selection. Second criteria could be, say, who are the people who are going to be teaching him or her, right? Who are the people who are going to be teaching him or her? Because at the end of the day, the kind of teachers that you're going to have will determine the kind of applicability of the knowledge that they're going to get, right? Knowledge, again, they can soak in the knowledge from anywhere. They can just keep asking AI enough, and they will get that knowledge. But the applicability of it, the application of it, where do you apply it, how do you apply it, when do you apply it, all of that requires tweaking by a professional, by a teacher, by a mentor, and that requires that the mentors are both academic in nature. That means they can explain a concept really well, and they need to be at the they should be very in tune with the industry as well. That means they need to know what is actually happening in the industry, and then mix and match both of these things put together and actually give the cutting edge of what is happening today. So they should be able to share what is in the past and how the concept kind of applies, and then they should also be able to say, okay, this is what is happening today, and this is what is going to happen 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and so you should prepare accordingly. So all of that should be really important to actually judge from. So like these, I feel, are the two blocks. That one, who are the people who are going to be who your child is going to be surrounded by, and second, who are the people who are going to be learning from your child is going to be learning from, and that should be the basis on which you decide the college. Everything else should come secondary. Everything else, that means the brand name, the pricing, the location, all of that should be secondary. Or maybe not pricing, because pricing is, of course, something that you have to decide beforehand. But yes, this should possibly a good way to start thinking about the college. Again, it is very radical, it is very different, but thinking from my own experience as a college student, it did become like a really important, I do feel that, all these questions are more important than actually just thinking about the brand name, because the brand name may or may not help you at the end of the day if the people that you are with do not enjoy it. I studied in two different colleges, and I saw the difference that I could, and the difference was majorly either with the classmates or secondary with the teachers. Everything else, the infrastructure and everything, does not really matter. Those are all secondary aspects. So again, that's my way of thinking. But of course, this is just to give you an idea of how to apply first principles thinking to your own problems and to your own decision making, and use it in real world. Now, second of the tools is thought experiment. Now, thought experiment was essentially popularized by Einstein, and essentially the entire theory of relativity was thought of by Einstein in this way. He was essentially running experiments in his own head, and through those experiments, he realized that what is the best possible path, or what is the best possible answer to this particular situation, and that's how he came up with the answer. So thought experiment are great when you have to think of different ideas or think of different situations, and then kind of boil it down to a single decision. So it could be, suppose, what is the best product that your child should be taking to college, let's say, and you say have five different options of an iPad, MacBook Air, MacBook Pro, an Android tablet, and maybe a Windows PC. So if you have these five options, you essentially can run different thought experiments. That okay, can they edit videos on this? Can they watch movies? Can they watch YouTube really well? Can they run AI locally? Depending on the level of sophistication that they have. All of these questions, the experiments that you're going to run in your own head, you will realize the use case, and that will essentially reduce it down to probably say MacBook Air and to MacBook Pro, in case you want to focus on AI more, right? I mean, AI is going to become bigger, so maybe running AI locally could be money saver over the course of the life of that particular device. So, that's just another way to think about it. And that is a thought experiment that you can keep applying again and again in different situations, keep running those iterations in your own head, in your own imagination, and then come up with the best possible path forward. Second, rather third is quantization. This is a tool which is so cool. But it's also at the same time difficult. But it's really cool because it's essentially breaking up big things into smaller chunks. Now, where this comes from, it comes from nature, where again Einstein said that energy or sunlight is essentially it's not a wave. He said that these are energy packets. Which he coined the term photons. So photons essentially are energy packets that are being thrown down in nature. And so we realize that energy travels in packets. And similarly, there are quantization of energy everywhere, or quantization happening everywhere in nature. So it was happening in photons, it was happening in electron. Electron was earlier thought of like just negative charge, but they realized that negative charge, the smallest unit of charge that is there in this universe, is an electron. And that essentially multiples of that essentially make up all the electricity that we know of. And similarly, pixels, I mean, we apply that as technology to pixels. Like in real world, how that gets applied is to showcase this big screen, your screen that you're watching on, or my screen that I'm showing this on. That essentially is the big screen, and it is broken up into smaller chunks, and each chunk, which is a pixel, is then controlled by the software behind, right? So it just allows for better granularity and applicability. Another example that is very real world from quantization is the idea of transportation, and how transportation as an industry shifted and changed by the essentially the invention of shipping containers. Before shipping containers, essentially what we were doing is we had these bags of jute that were essentially just dropped onto the floor of the ships. And the maximum could be, say, 10 feet height of these bags. And it was not a great way to store all of these materials and stuff. And so we were wasting a lot of potential places and ways. So someone came up with this concept of a shipping container, which is essentially throughout the entire transportation chain, can we boil it down to a single unit, which is a specific size, which is of the shipping container that we see. And that size then becomes the standard across the board. And that size essentially fits on a ship, and all of the material is loaded onto it. So all of the shipments that are going to happen is now going to happen in this unit. This becomes essentially the atomic unit, so to say, of that, or the quanta of that particular chain, the supply chain, or just that particular method. And from there, it transformed transportation, because shipping became so much more profitable, because there was so much goods that can be shipped very easily and for a cheaper price from one place to another through this particular invention. And similarly, it can just with that container could then be just taken by a crane and put it on railway tracks, and can be taken across the country anywhere. And then similarly, from the train, it could be put in directly onto the back of a truck, and can be taken anywhere into the hinterlands of the world. And that was such a big revelation in world. Again, for your child, for you in your own life, how you can apply it is essentially think of all the big things that they want to achieve. So it could be say they have to get really good at SATs, right? So SAT then becomes a goal, and that goal can then be broken down into quantas. That, okay, what is that one quanta? What is that one unit of work that they need to finish? Maybe every day or every week. You can decide that according to yourself, but every day works really well, because then you have a very clear way of tracking the progress. So it could be that every day that they're finishing say 5 exercises or 10 exercises, whatever that you choose. So you essentially break down the goal into these quantas, or these blocks that you essentially have to then finish up to reach up that particular goal. So that's a way you can apply quantization into your own world, into your own decision making that way, right? Another one is flywheel. Flywheel is a concept popularized by uh, Jim Collins. Now, he's a business thinker, he's a business writer, but Jim Collins essentially talks about flywheel, saying that, effort in the right direction ratchets up. Essentially, what he says is when you do the effort in the right order, that right order can become self-fulfilling, and it takes a lot of effort to put in and to start and to start that particular flywheel. But once it's up and running, then it automatically runs. For example, in real life, how this is applicable is, suppose uh, I want to essentially say, content creation, let's say, because content creation is very hot topic nowadays. And so content creation is essentially, you have to put a flywheel behind it, like, or you have to think through from a flywheel perspective to actually make it happen. So for example, I cannot run cohorts if I don't have enough number of students. And if I don't have, I mean, I would not have enough number of students if I don't show that I know the stuff that I'm talking about, and until I show my own expertise enough number of times. So that means if I make content on YouTube, which is what I'm doing right now, if I make content on YouTube, and then from that YouTube, I get queries of the parents and the students. And then from those parents and students, they join the cohort. And then from the cohort, they get the results. Those results, they again get highlighted back into my content, into my sharings onto the web. And that becomes the flywheel, right? Because every single time I go through this loop, it becomes stronger. The results reinforce my content. The content reinforces uh, the number of inquiries that are coming in for me. Those inquiries reinforce the number of students joining my cohort, and then from my cohort, again, I get the results which are additional and better results, and from the results, again, my content gets stronger. So you understand how this becomes this cycle. Essentially, in the beginning, it's going to be very difficult for me to push through, because there's going to be a lot of effort required from my end to make the content, to share those results, to build up that authority, to build up my base of audience, base of parents and students that trust me. But once it's done, every single time I run this loop, it becomes easier and easier and easier, right? So that is the concept of flywheel that is so important, that your effort in the right direction keeps ratcheting up, and after a point, it becomes automatic. After a point, it becomes easier and easier and easier. This is also true in your own discipline of, just keeping yourself healthy. Like if you go and work out, the first day of the gym will be difficult. Second day of the gym will be a little easier. Third day of the gym will be a little easier, and so on and so forth. And if you go to the gym or the yoga class, then you will start eating right. If you start eating right, you will automatically make the right decisions in terms of your in terms of the sugar or the calories, or all the various things that we need to have. And then from there, you will sleep better. If you sleep better, you will maybe go to the gym again, and so on and so forth. So that's another flywheel to keep yourself healthy as well. So flywheels are something that are applicable all throughout your life, all throughout your personal being. But yes, for a student, this is really important and really applicable. Next is bottleneck. Bottleneck is again very simple, which is essentially this is the negative one, and then this is essentially where you solve a problem, but you have to think of an entire system as a chain. Think of the system as a chain of interconnected parts, and then see where you are getting stuck, right? So you essentially have to see the system as a chain of interconnected parts, and then notice where is it that the system is getting stuck, right? Or maybe you're getting stuck. And then from there, you have to unlock that part, so that the flow, whatever that flow is, it could be information, it could be knowledge, it could be money, it could be anything, that flow continues to happen, right? So for example, a bottleneck could be, say, again, a bottleneck could be, say, you don't have enough time, right? So you want to start content creation, but you don't have enough time. So the not having enough time becomes a bottleneck. So now, can you then figure out, okay, if I don't have enough time, can I either dedicate 15 minutes, 20 minutes throughout the day for this, right? Can I put it on my calendar? So essentially you overcome that bottleneck either through this, or you figure out some way to free up your time. You cut off some meetings, you cut off some work here and there, and you focus on this if it's important. So first you analyze what this system is, and what the problem you're facing. Once you analyze the system, then you realize, okay, my calendar is too crowded, and that is creating this bottleneck that I don't have enough time to create content. And then once you realize that, okay, that is the bottleneck, then you have to make time for creating content. And that could simply mean just prioritizing that on your calendar, and then from there you start opening up that system back up. Right. And similarly for your child, it could just be studying, right? Content creation is just an example, but it could be studying, that maybe they're so bogged down with their homework, with their schoolwork, with their extracurriculars, that they don't have time for thinking, or that they don't have time for reading, or they don't have time for self-study, or they don't have time to spend time with the family. Once you've identified the bottleneck, only then can you actually go out and do something about it. But without identifying the bottleneck, it becomes very difficult for you to even think about solving that problem, right? So that is another way to make your decisions uh, mm, uh, better and true. The last one is more of a way of it's a way of looking at the world in a way. So essentially what's happening is strategy of approximation in physics is essentially this idea that you isolate different variables, and then slowly you layer on the complexity. For example, when you study friction, if you remember, or when you study motion, there's motion that happens on a frictionless surface, right? So the whole idea that we have that frictionless surface is to imagine a scenario where we push something, and that object is on a frictionless surface, and we want to see how that object is going to behave. So we are essentially removing that variable, which is true in real life, where we never have 100% frictionless surfaces in real life, but we are removing that for the sake of an imagination, and to see what's going to happen in an imaginary world where that friction is not there. And we see how that motion behaves, right? So when I push a ball on a frictionless surface, that ball is going to continue rolling without ever stopping. Right. So then from there, we realize, okay, the ball has essentially taken up all my energy, and essentially going to roll forever, unless an opposite force is acting on it. And that opposite force is what? It's friction. So when we introduce, or when we want to see, okay, why is it that in the real world, when I push a ball, it stops? I realize that, oh, the missing part has been the friction. Because in a world where there is no friction, the ball will always keep moving, right? So obviously, that's not a great example, but essentially, the idea is this, that you isolate these variables, and slowly you layer on these complexities. So maybe you understand the motion without friction, then you add on the friction. Then once you add on the friction, you also add on the air friction on top of it, or you add on all the different things, or maybe another force at an angle that was there. So all of those things you keep on layering on, and to see the complexity together. So what that means over here for you, for your child, is essentially you see the world in different parts. You essentially remove all the complexity, and you see just, okay, what is an ideal scenario in this particular domain? So what does an ideal college look like? What does an ideal relationship look like? What does an ideal college experience look like? What does an ideal portfolio look like? What does an ideal resume look like? And from there you see, okay, this is the ideal. And from this ideal situation, you realize, okay, this first part is not possible, second part is not possible, third is possible, fourth is possible, fifth is a little dicey. Once you have this list, then you figure out, okay, why are the first one or two not possible, and what are the reasons for that? Once you write down those reasons, you can realize that, okay, can I remove that reason? Can I change that reason in some way? Or can I just, you essentially are trying to figure out what's the best way to get to that resume, the ideal resume that you want to build, right? And what are the real world effects that are stopping you from it? So that layering on the complexity really helps you figure out, okay, these are the different things that I need to tackle in order to get to that ideal state that I'm looking for, or my child is looking for. right? So these are the 6 tools that I feel are great to start off with, great to start using on a day-to-day basis, and see if you can make sense of it, and if that really helps build that muscle of decision making, which is why we started all of it. Because at the end of it, making the right decision is imperative today. It is the most important thing. AI essentially keeps saying, it's like there are so many opinionated things, including AI today, that you can either get sucked in by AI and essentially follow whatever it says, or the other thing that for your child is there is they take it as feedback, they take it as a direction, they take it as an idea, and then they make their own decision, right? The moment they make their own decision, that's when they have control over their own life. And that is only possible when they have the mental tools themselves to actually make the right decisions. Because how would they ever judge that if what AI is saying is right or not, right? Or what their professor is saying is right or not, or what that influencer is saying is right or not. And so all of those are really important today to build in the right age group, that is this teenage years that we work with. So yeah, getting those decisions right is super duper important. And so getting them to practice early is really, really, really key to their success in the future. So that's it. That's it for this particular lecture. I hope you liked it and enjoyed understanding these different ways that you can help your teenager become a better decision maker throughout. And if you liked it, please do share it with your own child. Please share it with parents who would resonate with it, and follow along so that you keep seeing me in your feed again and again. And put down in the comments what you learned, what did you learn from it in particular, and what can you apply in your own life immediately. Or if you have a particular problem that you would want my inputs on, so I can either make a new video on it or probably just reply back to your comment. So yeah, with that, I will see you in the next one pretty soon. Bye.